Here we go. Hi, everybody. Welcome to What the Heck Do They Want Now? California Tribal Nations, Climate Change, and OEHHA. I'm Lori Montserrat. I work for the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment, which we lovingly call OEHHA. And before I start, I wanted to take a moment to honor Harry Williams, a friend and teacher of mine who died this year. I was lucky to meet Harry early in my journey working with tribes. He was a wise man, an excellent teacher, and an admirable prankster. Harry, I think about you daily, and I'll forever benefit from your guidance and wisdom. With that, I'd like to introduce my fellow panelists. Afterwards, I'll give you a brief background on the Climate Change Indicators Report, and then you'll hear from the 5 tribal representatives. I feel like I'm introducing a basketball team here. From the Eastern Sierra, we have Stewart, chairperson of the Big Pine Tribe of the Owens Valley.
Good morning.
Also from the Eastern Sierra, Brian Atkins, environmental director of the Bishop Paiute Tribe.
Good morning.
From the coast, we have Teresa Romero, environmental director of the Santa Ynez Band of Chumash Indians.
Good morning.
Up in Lake County, Sarah Ryan, environmental director, emergency management director, and so many other things of the Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians.
Morning, everyone.
And last but not least, Mike Shaver, environmental director of the Middletown Rancheria of Pomo Indians.
Hello out there.
OEHHA prepares the Climate Change Indicators Report on behalf of CalEPA, and until this go-round, the report was a collaborative effort involving only other state agencies, the federal government, and academia. We realized that we needed the help of California tribes because the indigenous people of California are the oldest environmental professionals, botanists, wildlife biologists, and scientists. Without collaboration and knowledge of the tribe, we're unable to give an accurate picture of climate change in California. We also wanted to raise awareness about tribal specific climate change impacts and demonstrate the value of tribal knowledge in reporting climate change impacts. The Climate Change Impacts Report, as it was, had the indicators separated into 4 groups. Climate change drivers, which are like greenhouse gas emissions and atmospheric gases, changes in the climate, air temperature, winter chill, drought, impacts on physical systems, like snowmelt runoff and sea level rise, and then impacts on biological systems, on humans, vegetation, and wildlife. We have a new category this time around based on tribal information. And you can see we have a new beautiful icon to the right that was designed by the Santa Ynez Chumash. And what the tribal view has given us is it's woven back together these impacts that we have so achingly teased apart. All of this work has been guided by a respect for tribal data sovereignty. We try to listen to the tribes, get their permission before we announce something. We try to recognize indigenous knowledge, and we're trying to elevate tribal knowledge in all of this report. Our process in going into this was to get guidance from the CalEPA Tribal Advisory Committee. We convened a tribal indicators working group, and we've been trying to listen and learn from our tribal partners and from people that don't want to work from us. I think you can learn a lot from people that aren't interested. There's a reason. We try to establish relationships, and in all of this, we're trying to collaborate and co-produce, not take tribal knowledge and present it as our own, because it doesn't belong to us. The tribal impacts, I'm not going to describe them to you. They're going to be described by tribal voices. So first, I'd like to introduce again Lo Stewart, the Big Pine Paiute Tribe of the Owens Valley. Lo, you can let me know when to change the slides for you.
Sure. I picked mostly pictures because I figured those would at least be fun to look at while I'm talking. So my name is Lo Stewart. I am the newly elected tribal chair for our tribe in Big Pine. But I have experience for 4 years, so that would be 2 terms of the Environmental Advisory Board, and I've also been a contractor with our tribe to help assist in writing technical documents for our environmental department. I came in on this project because I was very interested in providing a voice to our community, which is very often overlooked just because we're rural, let alone because we're Native American. And when Lori and I got to talking about the project, I was really excited. I apologize. I don't really know what to say. I wasn't sure if this was the section where we were answering the questions.
Hey, Lo,
So-
sorry, the sharing is wacky, so I'm trying to fix it.
Sorry, Lo. Let me just interrupt for a second. Lori, go to the share screen, the little computer on the left, and try to share the PDF again. Is it still not? And now we can't hear you.
Sharing, it looks like.
Okay. Are you able to advance?
Let's see.
Okay.
There's a
good.
big lag. No, not able to advance.
Oh, we got to the next screen, so I thought it was okay.
Could you maybe share it for us, Heidi? Would that work?
Yeah, let me, do you guys have it in the documents?
Yep, it's already there in details.
Okay, let me see if I
Sorry for this. We practiced so many times.
I know.
And now it's just like randomly advancing, which is lovely.
No. Okay, stop sharing.
Yep.
Let's see. Sorry, everyone, just bear with us.
Yeah, it's so funny because now it's on my screen. It stopped sharing, but I can see it on the screen there. So,
okay.
I love technology. It's so wonderful.
Oh.
Yeah, there's quite a lag.
Yeah.
Well, at least it's not my Wi-Fi dropping this time. In one of the prior presentations I gave, I made a comparison of how the tribal chair is like Joe Biden, and I said very boldly, I am the Joe Biden of my tribe, and my Wi-Fi cut out, and everyone thought I was being very dramatic. And having to rewatch that over and over again, reassessing that presentation, I was like, I'm never making that claim again. Hopefully it didn't do it this time. So,
Man.
Lori, I want to bring up also that we used PowerPoint yesterday. That once we had it in the right form, if we have difficulty with the PDF uploading, maybe do you have the
it's uploaded. It's there, but
Lori, I'm gonna put my email in the chat box. If you can email me that either the PowerPoint or the PDF, then I can share it.
And if you have both, Lori, that's what I was saying. If you could send the PowerPoint too, because the PowerPoint might operate better.
Yeah, because I
hear you, Mike.
As an moderator, I can't get out of our moderator screen to get to the details where you've uploaded the document.
That's awesome.
But the other thing too, Lori, that you might try to do is sign out and sign back in.
Sorry, everybody.
And the system was working so well.
Of course.
And we
Okay,
could.
it's sent, Heidi.
Okay. Let's see if I can.
I had all my other windows closed because my Wi-Fi is fragile here, so I had to reopen it. Who knows what'll crash next. And I'm happy to try sharing again if you think that might work.
Do you have it as a PowerPoint? Maybe that would be better to share it.
Just what Mike said.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't even hear you because I was trying to look at our troubleshooting guide.
Yeah, no, I don't on this computer because it doesn't work. The PowerPoint didn't work, but let me grab it. Let me find it. Okay.
Okay, I just got it.
Hang on a second.
Oh, no, that's Brian. And Brian, the slide you just sent, there's only one slide.
Yes.
Okay. Do you want me to, I can share that.
Do you want me to try the sharing the PowerPoint? Yes, Mike says.
Yes.
I'm going
if you
for
have it.
Yes. Mike says it. I'm doing it.
Okay.
We had a hard time yesterday getting started. Once we had it, it was fine. Thanks.
It's still not doing it because I'm on Big Pine Tribe of the Owens Valley and nothing is showing on the screen.
Okay, no problem.
We
I just got yours.
Oh, you do it? Oh, there it goes.
The big pine.
Oh,
yay. Okay. Good time. Slow. Take it away.
What am I answering the questions now?
Sure.
So we don't have any questions yet.
What did you learn and how did you feel about the process?
I felt I've had to make decisions before I became tribal chair about working with groups, students, educational departments, and companies that have wanted to get information from our tribe. And the big thing that I always think about is even when they are well-intentioned, rarely do these groups ever come back to A, provide us what they used the information for, and B, to, just kind of maintain a relationship. And I will say that this with OEHHA has been completely different. Lori and I are in contact frequently. I like to think we've developed some sort of a friendship. But I was very excited that there was a limited amount of structure in putting the document together for OEHHA on behalf of the tribe, because it meant I was able to use sources that typically are not able to be cited by academics. I was able to fall back on interviews I've done with some of our tribal elders and some familial knowledge of the area, just as well as my own experience growing up here. The biggest thing that has come out of this that I'm pretty excited about is the fact that there was a reporter from Cap Radio who reached out to do an article on this particular project, and she spoke with me. Within 24 hours of the article being published, I had a reporter from ITV, which is a British news station, reach out to talk to me. And last weekend, I think it was last weekend or the weekend before that, it's all a blur at this point, they came to the Owens Valley to talk to myself, my father, and a few other tribal members about climate change in our community. This footage is going to be broadcast at the Ecological Summit that's going to be held in Glasgow at the beginning of November. And it's also going to be put on British television. And it is humbling to realize that such a small project that was to help a state agency finally get to interact with tribes is leading to things that are bringing bigger and broader awareness of tribal ecological issues that are going on.
Cool. And I don't know why there's a poll coming up, but
yeah, I was, a little
it's really
about
interesting. And now it just it says the poll's been removed, but it's still there. It's a delight.
I deleted those polls, but if you can just X out of it if it's still on your screen.
Thanks. Cool. Thank you very much, Lo. Teresa with the Santa Ynez Band of Shumash.
Well, hi everyone. I'm hoping I don't get too glitchy, and I'm just going to apologize in advance because this particular platform and my IT security here in my office are not speaking well with one another. So I'll just start. I am coming to you from the reservation here in Santa Ynez. I am the environmental director. I've been here for about 5 years, and I've been working with tribal community for well over 20 years now. I'm an enrolled member of the Coastal Band of Shumash, and the Santa Ynez Shumash is the only federally recognized Shumash band. And I would like to acknowledge that there are 12 other Shumash bands in Shumash territory. I think that's really important to remember. There were over 160 Shumash villages in our traditional territory. In a moment, you'll see a map, hopefully, of all of those villages. And thank you, Lori. That seemed to have worked. And our territory spanned over 7,000 square miles, so it's a really large area. And we are being really deeply impacted by climate change. We are seeing the loss of steelhead in most of our waterways. And we have had no steelhead in the creek here on the reservation since the early 1960s, I would say. And that was a major subsistence food source for the tribal members here, as well as a lot of the Shumash community in our area. Additionally, there is a lot of wildfire issues here locally. And actually, we just had one contained. We're at 97% containment. But of course, now we have rain coming, so we're worried about debris flow and flooding this weekend. So these are some of the climate change impacts. But more importantly, we're seeing a migration of a lot of our cultural species, plants and animals out of our area. We're very concerned about marine resources and climate change. We already don't have abalone, which was a food source for us in our area. So those are some of the impacts that we're seeing. In terms of how we worked with OEHHA, I want to say that I wish there were more agencies within the state of California that would do what OEHHA has done. The process has been inclusive. It has been very acknowledging. First of all, permission has been asked every step of the way, over and over again, by anybody I've worked with at OEHHA. And Lori and I have been working together for a while now, I think, on many different levels. So I think that's I just want to acknowledge that because I don't see that a lot within many of the agencies. And so I want to say that that's really been very beneficial to us to have that permission asked. I think the process was really respectful of our community and our elders, and allowing community members to really offer their opinions and share very openly. At sometimes it was very emotional for community members. And it's really hard not to be when we talk about climate change and climate change impacts to our community and to our resources. And a lot of times when we're working on climate change, there is a separation between climate change and community. And when we're working with tribal and indigenous community, you cannot separate those things from us because we're connected to all of our resources. And I probably could go on, but I'll stop there unless, Lori, you would like me to add more. And this wonderful map, if you can see it, I hope you can, are the actual names of all of our villages. So you can see how far and wide, and they're split into the northern region and the southern region of our traditional territory.
That's a great map. It's one of my faves.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Teresa. Mike, Middletown Rancheria. Let's see if we can get your slides to advance. I'm on your first slide, but I'm not seeing it advance on the screen. Are you?
I see the first slide for myself. Oh, there you go. That's great right there.
Yeah. Awesome.
I do want to mention, I thought Brian was Brian before me?
Oh, Brian, I completely forgot about my dear Brian. So I'm so sorry, Brian. That's what happens when you're so quiet.
Do you want to go back and grab that first? There you go. I'll hang out and wait.
Brian got disappeared. I'm really sorry, Brian.
That's fine.
I disappeared your slide.
Do you want me to go now?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have his slide. Would you like me to share it?
Yeah.
If you could, that'd be awesome.
Okay, let me see.
I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I thought you said you sent it to Heidi too. That'd be great, Heidi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Between getting Big Pine backwards and that now you've disappeared, I'm wiping out the Owens Valley.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Brian Atkins. I'm the environmental director of the Bishop Paiute Tribe. We're the environmental office of the tribe, the EPA of the tribe, as you will. We have water quality, air quality, food sovereignty, and natural resource programs. We were approached by, I think, Lori during a California Energy Commission conference that we hosted here a couple of summers ago. And we worked with Lori with some of the Eastern Sierra tribes on this climate indicator project, where we brought in for a couple of days some of the tribes in the Owens Valley and larger Eastern Sierra area. Anyway, working with Lori has been great. She's developed kind of a draft plan for us to review and circulate for climate indicators for our community. And some of those indicators I just wanted to share with you now. So, but just back up, it's been great working with Lori and working with the other tribes. And I think this is a very valued report. It's going to be very helpful with a lot of different things as we go forth with climate resiliency plans, our hazard mitigation plans, fire safe plans, a lot of things. There were 5 indicators that were highlighted in our region, as I'm sure a lot of regions: temperature, drought, vegetation, wildlife, and fire. And I just wanted to highlight a few of those here. Drought, in our area, we get such little rain in our area, less than 4 inches a year, that the availability of rainfall really drives a lot of things: snow melt, groundwater runoff. It drives the temperature and the availability one of the things with the report was we were able to get some numbers for the Palmer Drought Severity Index, showing that Bishop experienced 41 dry years, and since it started to be calculated, including 3 years of extreme drought, which I believe we're in now. That has really we're working on several projects right now, looking at wildlife and vegetation. The summer heat has taken an account with the wildfires that we've had since the early 1980s. We've had, since 2007, we've had 10 large fires, and it has increased since the 80s, we've noticed here. With the assistance of Lori and her staff, we've been able to do this larger look, and that's been confirmed. We've seen wildlife, several wildlife showing up in the Eastern Sierra. The barred owl, black witch moth, it's never been seen in this area apparently before, partly because possibly of temperature and drought. Owen's pupfish is an inland freshwater fish that the overall range of that fish has decreased over in the Quaternary and the Holocene, and actually in this decade. And we're working to try to help those fish. But the drought combined with the climate has, although we don't know which one is the leading effect, the groundwater pumping or the climate, we have noticed that there is a reduction in the habitat for some of these, especially that species. And with the pinyon, we're working with a project with the local BLM Forest Service, looking to the lower, the pinyon pine is a very important species, and looking at some of the lower, more vulnerable stands that have been, that seem to be experiencing effects of drought. So that's pretty much all I have right now. If anyone has any questions for me at the end, I'd be glad to take them. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Brian also organized a listening session for the Eastern Sierras, and it was really insightful. The result, the summary of the listening sessions available on our website. We also have a listening session summaries for Southern California and Lake Sonoma-Mendo County. Okay, Mike, I think that you're up next. And Heidi, am I sharing mics or you?
I have mics all ready to go. I will go ahead and share it right.
Thank you both. Can everyone hear me okay? Well, Michael Shaver, the Environmental Director with the Middletown Rancheria Pomo Indians. Go ahead and move it to the next slide, please. The Middletown Rancheria Pomo Indians of California is a federally recognized tribe established with the purchase of 108 acres of land in July of 1910. The original ancestors of Middletown Rancheria Pomo Indians, also known as Lake Miwok Indians, were forced from their land and homeless during the 1800s, as newcomers settled in the area of Middletown and throughout Lake County region. With the establishment of Middletown Rancheria at the turn of the century, members of other tribal groups, such as Pomo, Wapa, and Wintoon, joined with the people of the tribe either through marriage or customary adoption. Middletown Rancheria is located in Lake County, California. You can see that by the small little red square in the map on the left. And is in the most southern section of the North Coast Mountain region. Bordered on the south by Mount St. Helena. As you can see, the three counties meet to the south. And my map is kind of not as good as some of the earlier maps, but you can kind of see where they meet together, the contours. It's Mount St. Helena, a mountain of the North Coast Range. And then a little bit to the east and south of that is Howell Mountain within Napa County. And that's Napa County to the southeast, I guess. And then to the west, we have Sonoma and Mendocino counties, the Miyakama Mountains. You kind of see a label to the left and up to the left of where the rancheria is located. That's the Yakima Range, which we are most closely tied into. And just out of the view of the map to our north is Mount Konocti and Clear Lake, which is a significant natural resource for the tribe. Our tribe acknowledges all the tribal communities in our area and have shared in cultural resources and practices throughout time through established transportation routes of the North Coast region. You can see here on the map the relatively small land base of the rancheria. This illustrates how tribal members are dependent on accessing traditional plants and animals on lands not directly managed by the tribe. The tribe and I are active in co-management with the resource agencies of the region and prioritize advocating for access to these off-rancheria resources. The native vegetation on the rancheria is mainly Douglas fir, ponderosa pine, California black oak, Pacific madrone, and manzanita. As you can see in the picture to the right, the tribe's casino and hotel development and a smart parking area seen there in the center. But the rancheria is directly behind that. The hill that's kind of shadowed is our rancheria hill that we have our water tank on. And you can see there it's a mix of conifers and deciduous trees. Let's see here. The tribe has recently purchased adjacent land to the east that contains a section of St. Helena Creek. And that's where I'm taking that photo. I'm up on a hillside above the creek. This property has valley oaks and pepperwoods in areas adjacent to the creek and a variety of riparian plants, including white willow, cottonwoods, pepperwoods, and sedges that the tribe has traditionally used and now has more direct access to. The tribe has been impacted by climate change through wildfires, drought, increased water temperatures, and invasive species. And I will now quickly go over some of the impacts that were communicated by our community with the effort to prepare for and during our climate change listening session. I just want to point out the last photo before we move on, the bottom right. I believe that's a glass fire. I believe I'm looking to the south, but we have so many of these. We had the Valley Fire 5-6 years ago, and then more recently the L and U complex and the glass fires, all very close to the rancherias, but fortunate enough that have not entered into our properties. Please move on to the next slide. I want to start off with, I guess, the 4 impacts I had mentioned very briefly are increased water temperatures, invasive species, increased wildfire frequency and intensity, and lastly, more frequent extreme droughts. I'm going to start off with increased water temperatures. You see our picture shown in the picture are toxic blue-green algocyanobacteria blooms in freshwater and marine environments. This results in habitats without sufficient dissolved oxygen to support aquatic life, resulting in native fish die-offs due to this reduced oxygen. And most importantly, it results in the inability of our community members to swim or eat the fish. As mentioned earlier, it's I think a psychological impact to the tribe and their children if they can't go out and practice some of these traditional gathering things due to these highly impacted environments. Next slide, please. This is a picture of the St. Helena Creek section that the tribe has. And there's many impacts here, but I'm going to focus on invasive species. You can see to the right, on the right center of the photo is Scotch broom and Spanish broom, French broom, all found in our area. I believe this is the Spanish broom because it's down in the creek bed and a little more drier area, but it's in bloom. You see the yellow blooming, and we've worked with local communities on removing this invasive species during the bloom. If you cut it when it's blooming, the roots won't have the energy to regenerate. And then just past that, harder to see, but just at the edge of those yellow blossoms, you'll see some reeds sticking out. That's a rundo. That's another invasive species that's impacted our area. So what we're seeing is due to these extreme droughts and then the flashy flood events, we have scouring in our creek channels. And the scouring results in taking out many of the native plants. And then these invasive plants have a chance to establish themselves, resulting in loss of diversity and less dependent of wildlife. You can see on our left side, there is still some white willow and some of the valley oaks up above. But the invasive species have been a large impact to the natural resources and native species the tribe traditionally gathers and uses. Next slide, please. Now this one's a graphic that I obtained through CAL FIRE and Lake County GIS systems. And what I want to emphasize here, again, you can see Middletown Rancheria. We're in the center. This time we're a green rectangular off-shaped figure in the center. But what I want to point out here, and it's kind of hard to see the resolution, this is my cut and paste from a GIS database, but towards the bottom you'll see the legend. The legend shows these are in like 10-year increments. Each color shade is a decade from 1950 to the recent. The yellow is the most distant time, 1950 to 1959. So I want to point out here, you see the yellow blobs are smaller and get out. So, and then to the north of Middletown Rancheria, that's the Valley Fire. It just really knocked on our door. Yeah, I think the tribe had prepared with fire breaks in the local community. I think, we were fortunate the way the wind was blowing, and also the tribe had prepared. But you can see the size of that fire in comparison to the fires we saw 50 years ago. The intensity and size of fires are just significantly larger. And I can say some of the impacts of fires, but I think many people knows impacts. Loss of homes resulting in housing shortages, temporary employments, temporary job stoppages, and permanent loss of jobs, displacement from homes during evacuations, damage to watershed soils, health impacting of smoke, particulate matter for extended periods of time to trouble members' health, displacement and death of wildlife caused by fire, loss of quality of life has been customary in our rural condition. And what I want to point out here, before I move on to the next slide, what I'm really concerned about when I look at this slide is the area to our south. It hasn't burned in over 5 decades. And I think previously, many times as an environmental director, I try to bring things up to my tribal council that are concerns to me. Many times I feel these are like burdens I put on the tribe. In the tribal council, these things I see that could be a danger of the tribe. So we were having a hazard mitigation planning meeting, and I was trying to reassure one of the tribal council members that the slopes, the northern slopes of Mount St. Helena, I felt to a certain degree weren't meant to burn. They were on the north side, cooler and shaded, more deciduous trees. But due to the climate change and the intensity, we were now seeing drying on our northern slopes and die off of our trees. And so, many times I try to see the danger in the future and try to forewarn and plan for that. Next slide, please. So take a little bit to focus in. And I must say this again from the hillside above Santa Helena Creek. And it only goes in so far. I think my camera focused in more on the parking. But what I want to point out here, this is the spring of this last year. And you'll see the light greens are many of our black and blue oaks. And then the more burnt orange trees in the center, the brown, is part of our ponderosa pines mostly, and some Douglas firs dying off. That was after a winter, three drought years, but this is after the winter. During the winter, we had the die-off starting to occur. And what I want to point out here is the tribe has a ranch, our hill is kind of separated from the main mountain range, and we're a little drier. So I think we were affected sooner. But if you see farther up the slopes, you don't see that die-off yet, because I think those are the shaded, a little more watershed flow into those. Next slide, please. Now you see here, this is a photo I just took a week or two ago. We have our blue oaks and black oaks turning yellow, probably a little stress from the drought, but naturally just fall colors coming out. You can see the amount of brown and in the middle there. The ponderosa pines and Doug firs have just taken a tremendous hit over the summer. I'm working with the tribal council on obtaining funding through Bureau of Indian Affairs for hazardous tree removal. And when I first started my project design, I had 40 dead trees and requested enough money, more than enough money, to take care of those 40 trees. In the last weeks, we now counted 76 dead trees just on the Rancheria Hill. And the tribe will have to contribute to try to get this all done during this upcoming rainy season. But I think this is just kind of extreme. We show that the drought has had in this recent time and is building up over steps. So hopefully I didn't go too much into our background, but I really wanted to give some of the unique things that we see in the North Coast region. I want to thank Lori for having the listening session. I worked with Sarah Ryan with Big Valley, and we hosted one for the North Coast area for the Mendo, Lake, and Sonoma tribes. And I think it was a great opportunity to talk with some of the cultural leaders and the TIPO, Tribal Historic Preservation offices of our region. We work with them on a daily basis, but really don't focus, exchange data, exchange ideas and information. I think by having a listening session, Lori was very careful to let people know that they had ability to review material before it would be shared, very respectful during the communication, and it really allowed some of our tribal leaders and elders that opened up about things, I might have in a side conversation, but you just don't have the time for that day to day. So I think we've had a few tribes around the Clear Lake area that really shared, and the tribal leaders or elders were interacting between tribes. Many times they don't get together and have a chance to compare notes. So I really thank Lori for the opportunity, and I do must say you're exceptional in the work you've done and how you've worked with the tribes and communicating your respect and your ability to seek permission from the tribe of what you share. And I must admit, I did really good in preparing for the slides, but I didn't print out your questions, Lori. So
thank you, Mike.
Questions, just let me know.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Sarah Ryan, last but not least. And Heidi's going to share for us.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm Sarah Ryan. I've worked for the Big Valley Band of Pomo Indians since 2001, and it's just been wonderful working with and for and collaborating with the community here. They are on the shores of Clear Lake, and you can see from the pictures of this first slide that we've got some problems on Clear Lake. Of course, our neighbors to the south, Middletown Rancheria, and Mike has done such a great job explaining some of the things going on over there. We're in an agricultural valley, basically, right on the shores of Clear Lake, the largest natural freshwater lake in California. So the tribe is very dependent on the health of the lake, and the runoff from the local agriculture and other uses, land uses going on, have been really impactful for us. If you move to the next slide, a few years back, we had identified, I'm sorry, some of it's a little bit blurry, but we identified some of the issues of concern at Big Valley. And this is, just kind of outside of climate change, really, or maybe touched by it to some extent. But because of drought, extreme rain events, and increased water temperatures, and increased air temperatures, all of these things that we've noticed in years past have just kind of gotten worse. The invasive species that normally in the wintertime would just die down are not doing that as much, and so we found that the invasive species, aquatic species on the shoreline, we're having to work harder and harder to maintain the native species such as the tule. And the tule is an extremely important plant on the shoreline for the tribe. It's used for ceremonies, food, baskets, and all sorts of things. Extremely important. And we're constantly, we're using our 319 EPA grants to try to stay on top of the invasive aquatic plants that are in the lake and replant tules. We're constantly replanting tules in various areas to really beef that back up because the invasives are taking over. So, just in general, the problems that we've noted in the past have just been getting worse. And so we're doing our program. We do a lot of environmental monitoring. Not going to really get into it in this short period of time in this presentation, but the project that we did with OEHHA and the collaboration we're doing with OEHHA has been really helpful to, just give us some additional technical assistance, and also, listening to some of the issues that we're trying to find solutions for, including just increased collaboration with all the agencies. So the listening session, as Mike mentioned, the listening session that we did together in Lake Meadow and Sonoma with the tribes was great, because we got to hear what other tribes were experiencing, and a lot of us experiencing the same thing. So it helps us work together a little bit better. Next slide, please. We put together we think it's important to communicate how increased the exposure to contaminants can be from pollution to the state, because when they calculate the cleanup levels, or when they calculate the water quality standards for an area, or they calculate the permits, they need to calculate exposure. So we already know, and here's a picture, basically a graphic that several of us collaborated on to show the state what our freshwater harmful algal bloom event would do in terms of cyanotoxins. We have a really strong cyanotoxin monitoring program on the lake that we started with Elam Indian Colony. And so we, just wanted to show that, when somebody is out there doing a traditional activity, engaged in traditional activities on the lake, that there's a whole lot of other things going on, which means that they might be getting exposed in multiple ways. So we think it's important to explain that and get assistance with and help develop our impact pathways for various contaminants. Next slide, please. So, one of the impacts that we've seen with climate change, I have a couple slides on the Clear Lake hitch, a native species that is now on the state endangered list. It's a threatened species. I have a couple of pictures of kids the picture on the left is kids going out doing some hitching on one of the local creeks. We found that the creeks have been drying up so rapidly that the hitch gets stranded. A species that would spawn in the creeks later has now gone extinct. Can't think of the name of it at the moment, I'm sorry. But on the right-hand side, you can see several of us who were basically rescuing some Clear Lake hitch fry a couple of years back from one of these ponding events when all the water is basically drained from the creek. Next slide, please. We've also gotten several BIA funds or grants to really understand what's going on with the water level in the creeks, because we can't change the behavior of farmers and other water users, especially in climate change when there's even less and less water, until we have some hard data and kind of go to bat with them. And so we have pressure transducers, and we're looking at water rights along these creeks. And this pictorial just shows that with the data that we have, that by May there are 16 different places along Adobe Creek, which is one of the most active spawning creeks of our area, but 16 places where the hitch would not be able to pass because the water depth is so low. And that means that they get stranded and then they die in the tens of thousands. Next slide, please. So what we've noticed and have gotten some help with OEHHA on this is just extreme rain events and drought have really big impacts on our water quality. There are, because of increased sedimentation and erosion, we end up getting cyanobacteria blooms. As Mike mentioned, there's also lower dissolved oxygen, which means that you have fish kills, and the fish habitat is definitely being affected. There's also 65% of the county gets their drinking water from the lake. And so this increase in microbes and cyanotoxins and things in the lake means that people are being impacted. And actually right now there's a health advisory for drinking water on Clear Lake, if you have your own private systems, that people are under because of the data that we're able to show. And we've been able to get some alternate water sources for these folks, but we're seeing some big changes in the lake because of climate change. Next slide, please. And also a native species, these warmer, drier winters, as I mentioned, the invasive species are not dying out like they have been in the past. So we're losing our native species because they can't compete. Mike showed that great picture of the trees dying out in their area, and we've got that as well. And this is a food source for people. So when you have these die-offs of trees, then it also increases fire danger. And next slide, please. I think I'm at the end. Oh, that's your slide. That's your slide, Lori. We had a great time working with OEHHA, as I mentioned before, and it's been good partnering with everybody.
Thanks, everybody. I apologize again for the technical troubles. Best laid plans of me. Feel free for anybody to, if you think I paid people to say nice things about me, contact them directly and find out if you should take my call if I call you, or if you should reach out to me if you're thinking about participating in this. And do read the listening session reports. They may not be life-changing for you, but they certainly were for us. And Sally, if you're listening to this, we can't separate man-made from other climate change. We just can't do it, but we're doing our best. It all impacts one another. And that's the big thing we've learned from working with the tribes is we're all connected. Even if we don't want to be, we're all connected. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate your time and your energy.
Lori, I don't see any additional questions. Should we leave a little bit of time or should we just end?
I'd say stop while we're ahead.
Okay, just remember everyone that you can contact any of our speakers in the people panel in the main room. So if you have any follow-up questions that you think of later, go ahead and contact them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Lori and Heidi too, and the whole team.
Thanks, you guys. I really appreciate you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.